Well, welcome. Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing today?
Great.
Doing well, doing well. Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Whether you're a parent here with us or watching the replay, or someone just exploring options and you've been thinking about this for a while, we are really glad that you're here to this very first Arts Embassy Academy Take Back the Education. My name is Chantel Hampton, and I'm the president of S.T.A.N.D Inc., a 501c3 organization based here in Central Florida, as well as in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm also the founder of Arts Embassy Academy, a 6th through 12th grade hybrid learning center designed for young creative entrepreneurs. And today, this conversation is really about helping everyone and you gain clarity, strategy, and confidence as you think about your child's educational journey. So, really quickly, I've been an educator for about 10 years, much of that time in higher education, and also as a professional musician working in the music industry. And I've seen consistently that students are extremely talented, they have tons of potential, but many of them lack one, vision, direction, and strategy, as well as real preparation for the world they're stepping into. I've realized as a higher ed professor that these gaps don't start in college, they start much earlier. And so today, we don't want to have all the answers, but we do want to start guiding you all on the right path and answer any questions you have about how to do so with your children. I am so excited to introduce our panelists. Today we have Miss April Oxford, who is a dear friend and a homeschool parent and a mother of three children across different age groups, one of whom is preparing to graduate. She brings real world lived experience navigating homeschooling across multiple stages, which is really exciting. Welcome, Miss April. I also have Miss Shayla Tate, who's also another dear friend, a mother of two boys and the principal of Victory Academy, a private school here in Central Florida. She brings insight from the perspective of structured academic leadership as well as being a mother navigating the development of her sons. Welcome, Miss Shayla. Thank you so much for joining us today. And then last but not least, we have Mr. Brandon Edgerton, who is an education director of audio arts at Full Sail University. And with years of experience in higher education as well as the music industry, he brings valuable perspective on how students need to be prepared, not just academically, but professionally as they step into creative careers. So, again, thank you so much for being here. Thank
Of
you all
course.
for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So let's start at the beginning. And Miss April, I'm going to start pose this question to you. But what initially led you and your husband to choose homeschooling for your children? And what was that transition like?
So we have three children, as you said, and they are all adopted. They came at 6 years old and 4 years old, and then 7 months old, all within the course of 12 months. But homeschooling is something that we had always kind of thought about doing. Our ring bearer and flower girl were homeschooled with classical conversations. So that was in 2003, when homeschooling in Florida was still kind of new. And But we really saw like a difference in their family dynamics and how the kids sort of interacted with the world around them, and so that was appealing to us. So it's something that we always talked about. Our girls moved in on a Saturday, and on that Tuesday, my husband was working full time, I was working full time, and our oldest went to kindergarten, and our youngest went to um, daycare for the day. So we became a family, and it was immediate separation. And so that was not a good way to really for them to get to know us and for us to get to know them and kind of create those family dynamics. So for the following school year, in 2015 in the fall, we um, decided to homeschool, and even if it was just to be like for a year, so that we can kind of have that nesting period that families get when they usually birth a baby or maybe adopt younger children. And so it's just been something we've been blessed to be able to do for the last 11 years now, and so it's really a blessing. And it's something that we, like I said, had always sort of talked about, and then we were able to implement that. I have a good friend who was homeschooling her children at the time. She still homeschools, and so I had kind of a model for what that could look like, and yeah, we just sort of hit the gas and went.
That's awesome. And I absolutely love the concept of using that time period to really create a bond. Um, because it's true, like when your children go to school throughout the day, whether it is public or private, they're with other people all day. And if you don't have that time with them, it's hard to create the culture that you desire to create, because
Exactly.
somebody else is actually shaping that most of the day. So, no, that's really good. Thank you. Thank you. Miss Shayla, this question is for you, but from your perspective as a principal, what are some early signs that a student may need a different type of learning environment?
Um, some of the signs that show that students need a different type of learning environment is when they're just not doing well in the environment that they're in. Some students need a more hands-on approach, and every school can't give children that. Um, some students need smaller classroom settings, and again, we know that every school can't do that. A lot of times, what we see is students tend to act out or they become a behavior issue. You start seeing them, throw tantrums. Maybe they cry. Maybe they don't want to go to school. A lot of times it's because either they are not understanding what is being taught to them, or maybe they're just not understanding how it's being taught to them. But it's something going on that's creating this lack of interest or them not wanting to go to school. So I think one of the biggest signs is when you start hearing your children. I mean, of course, when they first start going, it's the separation thing. They don't want to be separated from their parents. But if you have a child who at one point was excited about attending school every day, and then all of a sudden you start to see that decline in their interaction, they don't engage in the school activities. If you go in and you see your students in class and your child is like to the side, feeling lonely, um, if your student can't come home and tell you what they learned that day,
Right.
to me, those are all signs because most, even smaller kids, most of them can tell you, we learned this today, or they come home with some sort of excitement in their eyes and their hearts about what's going on. But when you start seeing that, just that lack of interest, then you need to start asking questions and trying to see, is this the best um, environment for my student?
That is so important. That is so important. And how would you just to follow up, because practically I know that a lot of parents can sometimes be in survival mode. And so moving through life and saying, well, you got to go to school is something. How would you advise a parent that is kind of reluctant about moving into that? And like, how could we support them?
I think the best support, are you asking about the support of a parent to the student or us supporting the parent?
I think a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the parent being a support to the student, like I said, just always asking questions, always knowing what's going on. Um, Especially when you start to get to the higher middle school and high school age, kids tend to shut down. They don't open up about a lot of things. And so we see report cards, and I try to always tell my parents, stop looking at grades. Because I think school goes it goes far beyond that, right? A student can be doing well on paper, but mentally, they are not doing well. And as a parent, we need to ask them questions. And uh, are you happy in school? Is there something else you desire to do? Are you interested in something else? How can you use what you're studying in class now to how would you use that in your future? I ask my son that all the time. We always talk to them, we communicate with them because we want to know what's going on in their minds. Um, and if they start saying, well, I don't want to go to that school anymore, I want to do something different, then let's find out why they want to do those things that are different and how can we create a balance for them. Yes, they have to go to school in some cases. And if homeschooling is an option for you, because every parent can't homeschool, but if homeschooling is an option, putting a plan in place and getting the supports from out there's so many outside side resources that a lot of parents just don't know about. But I really do think like we're in a good spot as far as homeschooling and education and being able to help our children grow. We just need to know the supports and know that they are available to us and available to our kids. But I think asking questions and communicating with your child is the biggest thing. And again, not just being amazed by grades on papers because your child can be making all A's, but they may not even be doing grade level work. And a lot of parents won't even know that. Um, I've heard of students going all the way through high school and not being able to they really can't read. Parents don't know their child can't read. The teachers know, but because there's no communication and because students just kind of shut down and they go through the motions and there's no advocate there, you have to advocate for your children. And you have to teach your children how to advocate for themselves as well. That is so important.
So good. That is so good. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess this kind of segues into this question to you, Mr. Edgerton. But from your lens, do you see differences early on between students who come in with direction, vision, and clarity, and who have been advocated for academically as well as just professionally, versus those who don't?
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful question, and a great point. Yeah, Full Sail, we're founded in the sense of this being this creative space or this home for creatives, and so um, we are an academic institution, absolutely, but we also have to navigate the nuance associated with helping inspire and equip creatives, and so where we find that challenge sometimes is the prospective student or the student is locked into what it means to be creative and what their interest is in terms of their creative area, whether that's music, visual arts, a number of other areas. But getting them to connect that to, hey, you're also on an academic journey here. So it is important that you have good study habits in place. It is important that you understand how to, manage your time and that you give the proper value to the assignments and things of that nature that are put in place because they are there to help you build the proper habits that you need to be successful, not just as a student, but as a professional and as a person. And so we do take this very holistic approach when it comes to trying to equip our students, our graduates, not just for their industries, because there's the different nuances associated with that, and we do that, but then also to be productive members of society and to handle the life's challenges and things of that nature. So the more a student is uh, prepared and at least has an idea of the direction that they want to go, the better, I believe, the opportunity for them to be successful, particularly an environment like ours. We're very accelerated school by way of how our degree programs are structured. So you're earning a full 4 year, 120 plus credit hour bachelor's degree program in a little less than half the time that it would take at a traditional university. And so, we're doing that. We're getting all the credit hours in. You're going to be in class 4 hours at a time when you go, and there's labs and a number of other things to balance as you're moving through the degree program. So, the better prepared you are to be able to handle those dynamics, certainly the better position you're going to be in. So your support system is an important part of that as well.
Absolutely. That's an excellent answer. Thank you. so much for
Of
sharing
course.
that. That's absolutely something that during my time teaching at Full Sail that I witnessed as well. I witnessed the difference between. I was later in the program, so my class I think was maybe their fifth or sixth portfolio class
Yes.
for their
Hmm.
program, and so with that, you did start to see where students were either kind of just coasting or really
Right.
grasping what they needed in 4 weeks. It's accelerated. So
Yeah.
with this, these deadlines are so important, and these tools that you need are grasping. They're so important when you go out into your professional field. So thank you.
Hmm. Indeed.
Absolutely, absolutely. Transitioning into our next section, I want to talk a little bit about what the practical steps look like. I know we're discussing, excuse me, taking back education and what that looks like from a more directive home education model, homeschooling model. So for Miss April, for a parent that is just getting started, what would be the first steps to homeschooling in Florida?
Yeah, so I think the first steps, it depends on the age of the student. So if they've already had public or private school um, experience, that transition is going to look different, but the practical steps are the same. So the first one, of course, is decide that you're interested in homeschooling, or that's definitely something that you're wanting to do, and to talk to people in the area, families that are close to you in your county or your town or your city. There's a lot of Facebook pages and groups like that you can find if you don't actually know anybody that already homeschools. If you do know people who homeschool, just pepper them with questions. Homeschoolers like to talk about homeschooling, so you're not going to like offend them or aggravate them. So that would be the first step to kind of see. And each family's homeschool looks different as far as what their needs are. Some children have gone through school and, like Miss Shayla was saying, have had some issues and maybe just really aren't happy. I know a lot of people who have taken their kids out of the traditional school setting because there were severe mental health problems because of all of the stuff that kids are dealing with. It's a heavy time to be a teenager or even a younger child. And but anyways, so the first steps would be to talk to people that you know that homeschool, to decide on a curriculum, which can in itself can be very overwhelming. A lot of homeschoolers in the early stages kind of sort of take bites from this one and this one and this one, and you can mesh it together. There are open and go curriculums that just send you everything you need, and on day one you do this, on day two you do this. There are different types. There's classical and Charlotte Mason style. There's Florida Virtual School is a wonderful resource where they have kind of more that more traditional um, public education, but at home. So a lot of the things that the kids are learning in class, it's similar. And the cool thing about Florida Virtual School or any homeschool program is that you can take it at their pace. So if a child is hitting those like understanding and they're able to move along faster, you can do that. If they need some time to just sit with a concept and to really fully understand it, they have that too. That's one of the beautiful things about homeschooling is all the time that you have. You can sit with something for a while. There's no race. Um, this might be something that we'll ask later, but I have practically, like in Florida, it's super easy to homeschool. The requirements are kind of low compared to other states. And so I don't know if this is the right time to pop those in, but there's a couple of organizations. There's one called the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, HSDLA. And I don't know if there's a way to put the website in later or whatever, but you can find it easily. Any state in the United States, it has all the laws for homeschooling. And in Florida, you see it. It's very easy though. The only things that are required of a homeschool student are a portfolio check by a teacher that holds a Florida certificate, a Florida teaching certificate at the end of the year, or standardized testing, which again, there's many ways to find out what those are. We also have the Step Up for Students scholarship, which is a beautiful resource that blesses a lot of homeschool families because it is a financial decision to usually, especially when the children are young, one of the parents is home. So that's a loss of income. And so this scholarship helps to mitigate that, and curriculum is covered, extracurriculars are covered. So a lot of students actually have started being able to explore the arts because they now have access to the funding to be able to do that. So a lot of kids are taking music lessons, and it's been really cool to see. And that's another option for homeschoolers. But the first thing is really just to ask your questions, form your questions. What would that look like for me? A big thing that some people have a problem with, or I won't say a problem, but that is a can be a hurdle, is that homeschool does not look like traditional school. It does not have to. It's fun to set up a little classroom if you have small kids and all of this stuff, but like I said, the flexibility and the freedom that is there is really you can't get that anywhere else, really. And touching on what Michelle said earlier about your children asking those questions, and sometimes that they're doing fine academically, but you're not quite sure where their head or their heart are. Homeschooling gives that option to know where they're at academically, but also really have those conversations and kind of grow the full human, instead of just kind of bits and pieces. So if it's something that you've considered for your family, it's really, there are many resources out there that make it accessible and not overwhelming.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. And thank you for those resources. I'll be sure to include those in the recap and the replay so that people can click them directly. Thank you. Ms. Shayla, so even from that, what foundational academic and personal skills should students be building during middle school and high school? So I guess as a parent, paying attention to that and knowing kind of where they should be um, is important, even in making that decision to transition them into homeschool.
Okay. So before high school, I mean, the students need a strong foundation in their academics, and the three R's is what we call it, the reading, writing, and arithmetic. In reading, this goes simply beyond like the coding words, but students really do need to have the ability to comprehend what they're reading. They should understand figurative language, recognize different text structures, be able to build enough background knowledge to fully comprehend what they read. A lot of times, students read stories and different things, but they have no prior knowledge of the things that may be happening in the story. So a lot of times teachers don't have an opportunity to be able to go back and introduce all of that background knowledge. So exposing students to real world experiences, even outside of the classroom, this helps them to be able to comprehend reading history or reading a book about whatever. In writing, students need to understand sentence structures, be able to organize their thoughts, planning, drafting, producing coherent paragraphs, essays, and reports. I know right now, everybody, we're technology, everything is driven through technology and it's great, but I think our students need to know how to use it properly. Um, we know we can put a child in front of a computer and they can find out just about anything that they need to know if they were doing a research report or something like that. But a lot of them don't know how to properly research. They don't know how to vet their sources. They don't know how to do something as simple as summarize. So a lot of times, because they don't know how to summarize, they end up plagiarizing, which causes them problems in high school and in college. But it's a lot of it is because they haven't been taught. In math, they need to know how to move beyond just basic math computation and apply concepts to real world problem solving. Those are the academic things that I feel like a student needs to be successful in high school and beyond. But equally important, I feel like they need the skills of time management, organization, being able to advocate for themselves, and the ability to handle increasing independence. Because as they get into high school, even in middle school, you start to see parents step back, and those students have to be responsible for whatever, keeping up with their assignments. Um, if they're homeschooled, even in homeschool, in the homeschool environment, we see that students still need They need to have some type of organization skills because when they get in high school, I'm sure the parent is not there, um, Miss April, as much as they are with the younger students. So they need to be able to have themselves organized, be able to manage their time. Because if not, we see that students become overwhelmed and they fall behind. It's not just about the content knowledge, but they need to be able to learn efficiently and adapt as challenges increase. I did a year at Full Sail, so I know, like what Mr. Brennan was saying, how everything is it speeds up. My son right now is doing dual enrollment, and he had to learn about time management because there's a lot of things that he's doing in college, but he's also having to take care of whatever he's doing in his his schoolwork, as well as all of his extracurricular activities. He has to know how to manage his time. And so I've started to like step back a little bit to allow him to be able to do that, because he has to learn. Because when you go off to college, there's nobody there. There's no alarm, no alarm clock. You have to set your own alarm clock. You have to be responsible enough to do those things that you need to do and be able to prioritize. So we have to start teaching them early how to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And to piggyback on that, Mr. Edgerton, so what habits or skills do you wish students had already developed before entering Full Sail, as well as professional, like in the
Hmm.
industry itself,
Hmm. Hmm.
noticing how people move? So,
Yes. Yes. Indeed. Yeah, we have this thing, and we're built on this concept of real world education. You mentioned real world, and it triggered me in a good way, Shayla, here a moment ago. And that's what we do. That's our learning model is built around this concept of we're going to teach you something, then we're going to put you in an environment that, in some cases, simulates the professional environment that you're going to walk into. We've got wonderful facilities, studios, production facilities, and things of that nature that rival the best in the industries. We've put those in place to put students in the cockpit, so to speak, being able to fly the plane before they find themselves in the industry having to do the same. So we do that, but then we also put them in situations where we bring professionals to campus. Their instructors are professionals. They have that environment or that experience to work with. We have professional projects that we bring in that students get to benefit from and be exposed to from that standpoint, because it's all about painting this picture of perspective for our students so that their transition from the academic life or childhood, teenhood, now into a full grown adult that's got to begin taking care of myself in an industry that isn't nearly as forgiving as an academic space. I mean, we've got all that, but the difference is there's some safety there. There's the opportunity to make some mistakes that won't cost you a job, if it were to happen, in a different situation. And so we try to cultivate that. So the students coming in, we have a thing called our motto is, if you're serious about your dream, we'll take your dream seriously. And I'll underscore that first part. If they're serious, there's the dream, and it's easy to dream, and and I don't want you to take on this expense just in pursuit of your dream. I wanted you to be serious about pursuing your dream, because that's the missing piece, is that work ethic that we need in place, that we understand isn't fully developed yet. No one's ready for prime time, first time out the gate, right? There's some development in every industry, every scenario that has to happen. But if you're serious about being developed into what it takes to be successful in your industry, then you found a great place for that to happen. So if they are serious about learning and growing in an area, finding their gifts and the things that they're gifted and talented at, and that being cultivated and developed into something that is of value in an industry area that they are interested in, then that's what we need to work with, because what comes with that is your willingness to meet the deadlines, your willingness to be trustworthy, to be developed into being trustworthy, your willingness to continually learn, and understand that it's not about a destination, because even when you reach said destination, there's still more to learn, more opportunity to grow. There's still somebody behind you that is interested in your job, so that you continue to have to grow in what you do professionally. But if we've got those qualities in place, then we feel very, very confident that we're able to help students get to where they want to get to. So,
So good. Thank you. And just a quick follow up regarding
mhm,
that. How would you say there's a student in ninth grade, 10th grade, and
mhm,
they
mhm.
are highly creative.
Yes.
They have an interest in whether it be audio arts, production, or even
Mhm.
let's just say game design or something,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
want to come to Full Sail. How
Hmm.
would you advise or encourage parents to support the child in that and help
Hmm.
guide them toward that, so that when they get there, they're not confused and lost?
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Um, I liken it to the advice I give artists and creatives, music creatives, through the consulting that I do. Is if you're interested in being an artist, for example, a music artist, then there should be some breadcrumbs there that indicate that, right? If you want to be a songwriter, if you want to be a producer, if you want to be, fill in the blank from various different industry areas, there should be some things there that um, really unprompted, you're already doing, showing interest in. If you want to produce music, then you've been trying to do that on some level within the context of what you have access to. Not everybody has unlimited access to things, and that's understandable. But you've inquired about it. You've tried to make use of what you have. You're at that point where it's like, as a parent, you would look at that and say, okay, it makes sense for me to make investment in this area because my child is interested in this, in growing. Let's see where this thing goes. And so, helping them be in those positions. Not that they will always know. I mean, I've got four kids myself. They know what they know, but then also as parents, we come along that and say, "Hey, I see something in you that you don't recognize in yourself yet. I'm going to push you a bit more in this area because I think there may be something here." There's that balance, of course, in terms of, okay, they ultimately have to latch on, and you don't want it to be a thing that they're doing just because mom or dad pushed them to do it. But it's all in helping them identify where their talents and skills and gifts are. I tell our students, when I sit down with them, when they're on the verge of graduating, I said, our goal here is to help you find that intersection point between something you're good at, um, yeah, something you're good at, and something people are willing to pay you for, and something that you're passionate about. I mean, those three things have to kind of come together. It's difficult if one of those things is missing, certainly the one where someone's willing to pay you for. But if you've got the passion, if you've got the skill developed to be able to do that, the other part of that will usually work itself out. And so we want to help them find that area that many times a student coming in is thinking they want to do this. I want to be a recording artist. Okay, we're going to help you understand what being a recording artist is, and we're going to kind of test you to that and see if you have some of those things in place to see what that takes. But along the way, you may discover that I thought I wanted to do that, but I learned about this other thing over here. I really like that, and I'm really good at it. I think this is more the direction that I want to go, and that's where that exposure is important. So you kind of pull that thread, and it starts early. And I look at my own life. I look back, in my years of high school and finding myself in different singing groups, and I was in band over here. It was always around the music thing before I understood that there was a music industry per se. But those things were there, and then as I grew and learned, I kind of found my way into something that I could make a career out of.
Absolutely, so helpful and so
Mhm.
so good. Everything that everyone has shared has been so good, and um, it's so true. It does. I'm thinking, just looking back over my life too, and I remember being what, 14, 15, and my dad went on a trip and I took all his gear, took it down and learned how to like put it together. When he got home, he
Yeah.
got mad because I took his gear
Mhm.
down. But but it was from that he saw that I was like truly serious. And so,
Yeah.
okay, let's get you on that track. So the
Hmm. Hmm.
support, the and then that's something I've watched with both April and Shayla as well, and how much they support their children, and guiding them. And you see, and I hate to like make the distinguishing factor the how much and how involved parents are, but it's very important that the parent be involved in helping that child cast that vision for themselves, if
Hmm.
you will.
Hmm.
And even if it's like throwing, like you said, Mr. Edgerton, throwing it in one direction, and even if it changes, it's okay because there is a solid foundation.
Absolutely.
And so,
Hmm.
so good. My last question, and if you all want to add anything, by all means, you have the floor to do so. But my last question is actually geared towards Miss April, and that is um, regarding one of the questions that are, and maybe Miss April and Miss Shayla can answer this, but as far as accountability and compliance, so parents that are interested in making that transition, okay, like I know I need a change for my child. I know that they're easing up to middle school, or they might be in seventh grade, or they might be even going into high school, but I don't know what to do and what that looks like as far as diplomas. I don't know what that means as far as requirements, like state requirements. And I know, Miss April, you advise parents to ask all these questions as well. But there might be somebody watching that's like, well, I desire to make this change, but I'm scared because of X, Y, and Z. Um, there's the talk that students, if you do Florida Virtual School Flex, which is the homeschool program, you don't necessarily get a diploma. If you do homeschool in itself, the student doesn't necessarily get a diploma from the state. So, what does that mean? And like I said, both of you all can answer this question. If Mr. Edgerton, you have anything to add to this, please feel free to share, especially as it pertains to what colleges look for when a student is coming in, and if that even is a determining factor. So, yeah.
So I'll start. I hear that question. My oldest is a junior, and so it's been a lot of there's a learning curve, but um, Florida Virtual School Flex, I believe my students have taken a few classes through there. Um, it comes down to the parent is the educator, so we make the diploma, and we have transcripts. I'm tracking my child's classes about what classes she's taking and the hours that looks like, how it sort of translates to a more traditional class, like what boxes her classes fill. There are ways to do that. There are templates. There are people who have gone before you on this road who can show you, hey, this is what I did. This is what we had. Um, I think for homeschoolers, especially people who are interested in homeschooling but are scared that their students' transcripts or their diploma will be seen as like kind of fake or something like that. That's not the case. Colleges accept the homeschool transcripts and homeschool diplomas. HSDLA is something that if you join the organization, I think there's a fee, but they can issue. I believe there are ways to issue, you know, diplomas that are like certified. So if you're worried about that, there are ways to get that taken care of. Dual enrollment, my oldest is also dual enrolled. That's another way to get in that college door while your student is still in high school. And so some of that starts to kind of track on its own. And if you look at the statistics, oftentimes colleges, and Mr. Edgerton, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but oftentimes colleges are interested in homeschool students because of everything that we've just been talking about, the ability to manage their own time, the ability to be flexible and to meet deadlines, because again, the beautiful thing about homeschooling is all of the time. And my oldest just recently started working, so some of that real world experience is kind of coming down she's kind of just sort of been hit with it as far as managing her time, because she does have her college classes, she has her regular high school classes. She a co-ops are something that I wanted to touch on earlier. Co-ops and umbrella schools, and that's something that the Arts Embassy would kind of act as. There are ways to have classes that are given in a school setting, but you are the lead learner, you're the teacher, you're the homeschool educator, but your children can go to these places. The hybrid schools are interesting because they're a few days a week, and they take their classes, but they also have classes at home, and so there are many ways to get to the same place, and that's one of the things that is beautiful about homeschooling. And along the the same lines that Mr. Edgerton was talking about, that seeing that spark that's in your student, in your kid, and saying, okay, we can spend time in this music now because you have it. You don't have to be in class 8 hours and then come home and then try to fit all of this in. So again, that flexibility that is there. But I hear a lot of times, especially people who have really young children, well, what will that look like when they're in high school? And some people, once their kid gets to high school, they put them back in public school or a private school because they do feel kind of out of their element. But I I my daughters take biology and chemistry through our co-op because that's something that I don't want to relearn. I don't want to relearn how to dissect a crawfish and teach my child how to do that. I did that once and it was good, and I am happy to pay somebody else to do that. And again, that's where that scholarship comes in, because anything like that, there are all of these classes. There's so much available. It's kind of like a really big, beautiful buffet, and you can find the things that your children need. But at the end, that higher level academics, oftentimes homeschoolers are better prepared than their public or private school counterparts, simply because they've had to manage their own time. There's not a teacher or a class, their school schedule saying, okay, now you go to this class, and the bell rings, and now you go to this class, and now you go to this class. They have to say, hey, I have to complete these things today. What order am I going to do that in? What makes the most sense? What helps future me? I use that language with my children all the time. What do you need to do now to help your future self? And so homeschooling gives that in a truer sense, I believe, the ability for them to learn how to do that in the safety of your home, where if something falls, and like Michelle said, sort of learning to back off and allow them to make their own choices, instead of all of a sudden they're in this new environment and now they have to figure it all out plus navigate the environment. And so homeschool kind of gives a softer launch for that. But don't be afraid. The last thing I want to say is that I mentioned it a second ago, but we're the lead learner. So if there's anything you don't know how, the most truest thing you can show your kid is to say, I don't know how to do that. Let's figure that out together. Let's find the resources, because then they're learning, okay, I don't have to know everything, because in life we don't. And I can now have this skill of finding out how to find the answer. And that's what learning is. It's learning how to learn, right? So anyway, I think I tell little, God has equipped us for our children. They've been given to us. And we teach them to read. We don't teach them to read. We teach them to walk. We teach them to talk. We teach them to use the potty. All of these things that are just part of growing little people into bigger humans, that can continue. We can teach them to read. We can teach them to do math. We can teach them how to play an instrument, or how to learn how to play an instrument, right? We can teach them work ethic, and we can teach them, we show them, we get to be there for their heart issues. All of the things that kind of come up that might get lost. And so it's a more global education than just the academics. And so children who are at that launching point into college are well prepared for that next season.
Absolutely. Thank you. So well said. Thank you so much. Did Miss Shayla or Mr. Edgerton want to add on to that regarding compliance or?
Yeah, Shayla, I'll defer to you. I do have something to share, but you're welcome to beat me to it if you like.
I think in regards to Miss Chantel, she had asked the question in regards to the diploma for homeschool students. And it's kind of the same thing with private schools. Private schools, you can be an accredited private school or unaccredited private school. You do have to, go through the whole Florida Department of Education to get certain documents and things like that to be able to consider yourself a Florida private school. However, the state still will not issue a diploma for private school students. The diploma that comes from a private school is not a state issued diploma. If you are under an accreditation bureau, then they will issue a scholarship. I mean, not a scholarship, but they can issue a diploma for your student. Um, but if it's an unaccredited private school, then again, you're still in the same, you know, scenario as a homeschool student. However, it gives you the just having that school umbrella, making sure that your transcripts are in place, making sure that you have your documentation, making sure that you're doing your assessments, as a homeschool parent that you're supposed to be doing every year, making sure that you have the educator to sign off on your documents and things like that. That's just the accountability that you need to have in place to make sure that your student education is documented. Um, but as a private school principal, I've I've been a principal for 9 years, but I've been in education for about 21 years. But as a administrator and a principal, I've had students to go to college, to the military, to all sorts of places and never have an issue because of their diploma, even though it's not issued by the state. So again, it's just about making sure that you're doing what you need to do as a parent to make sure that everything is in line and that you're doing the things that the state has asked you to do in regards to being accountable um, for your student, tracking their records and all of those things. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's extremely helpful. And yes, Mr. Edgerton.
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to say, and to answer or underscore, I think what April said earlier. Yeah, homeschool students, there's absolutely a quality that both homeschool students and private school students. My wife teaches at a private school, Lake Highland here. There's qualities developed, I think, in some of those spaces. Not to say it doesn't happen in public school at all, but especially those critical thinking skills that you have the flexibility to ensure those things are being honed and developed. And also the weight that comes with a lot of that sometimes. I love that you outlined, at least from the homeschooler side, that you got to manage all these different things and you've got some autonomy to kind of figure it out. I think that translates well into our model. It definitely translates well into professions and things of that nature. It reflects real life in terms of being able to do that, and that often becomes the biggest challenge, I think, of kind of getting that. We have open enrollment in terms of what we do, so it's not about the SAT scores and ACT and all of those things. We have different tests that happen during the course of curriculum for purposes of checking your foundation and making sure you're grasping concepts. But at the same time, we also understand that those create anxiety and different things for other people too. So we do take the approach of our goal at the end of the day is you to learn and for you to grow. And there different people get there different ways. And so our founder, John Phelps, who founded Full Sail, has always been about this concept of open enrollment because if you look at our over 100,000 graduates now in our 46 years or so. But if you look back through at our successful grads, especially some of our uber successful grads from Grammy winning engineers and to Oscar winners and the whole nine yards, if you looked back at their what might be the traditional academic template that you may consider predicting success, you wouldn't find some of these people in those on those lists or having those same pathways per se, because we're different people. It's about unlocking that code and taking the time and care to do that. We do it at an accelerated pace, which is its own challenge, as we've kind of outlined. But we do have a model that allows us to help discover that that pathway, that individualized pathway that our students need. Um, but the key to that, as I mentioned earlier, is they have to be serious about it because it's going to be work. It's going to be the pace is its own thing. But if they're serious about it, I think we've got a great way to do it. And the last thing I was going to say is just to extend the invitation for anybody on the Zoom, anybody watching later, certainly to come to campus. We offer campus tours on the hour, every hour, pretty much during the week. We've got a behind the scenes tour that happens one Sunday a month around the calendar year. But just come, to campus to just explore the different possibilities that present different pathways people have to not just the arts and the creative spaces, but technology, business. We get in a lot of different areas from the arts to emerging tech and everything in between. So many different options there. You have my personal invitation to come and visit if you'd like. So
Thank you so much. And we will definitely, I do have a plan to take some of our current students from Arts Embassy to the campus for them to do a tour and see. And so I'll definitely
mhm.
let you know when we
Please
decide to
do.
do that. But
Yes, yes,
no,
absolutely.
in closing, I just want to say thank you to each of you all for your invaluable. It's so valuable, your advice and your wisdom and everything that you've shared today. Um, I can't wait for our next conversation, and I look forward to seeing how parents take this and move forward and venturing out and even being creative in how they view education and educating and developing their child. So, thank you again, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your Saturday. Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
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 Again, thank you all for watching this very first Take Back Education Forum. I'm so excited to see what it is that we're going to do together as a community to build the whole person, the leader, the artist, and the entrepreneur. As you see, this conversation is not about saying that there's a right or wrong path. It's really about giving you all, as parents, as caregivers, as guardians, the ability to really envision your future child and where you desire for them to be, as well as where they desire themselves to be. And it's so important that we all continue to be creative in that upbringing. If you're interested in learning more about the Arts Embassy Academy, as we have several different paths that you can explore and will come alongside you to help you with homeschooling your child, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can absolutely reach out to me directly at Chantel at theartsembassy.com or visit our website, www.theartsembassy.com. We would love to connect with you and answer any questions and support you as you create your child's way. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and you don't have to figure this out alone.